Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening on the Power of Possibility podcast. Tonight promises to be interesting, powerful, authentic as we listen to Dr. Georgiana Remmie, who's going to share her joining as it relates to. She picked a really important topic, though. So, this topic is very juicy when you talk about what happens when you are called to answer a big purpose when the harvest is plentiful. What does that mean? What does that mean? A lot to unpack tonight. But without much ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Georgiana, giving her the respect to actually introduce herself. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm screaming live from the Sire CEO page, but welcome to the Power of Possibility. I am the founder of the Power of Possibility because I do believe God has given me a bigger ministry whereby we show up every day. And every day you have an opportunity to minister. Ministry is every day. That's why the power of possible is important because ministry in the marketplace. I do believe Jeremiah 1 verse 5 where God says that before I knew you, I formed you in your mother's womb. I had a plan and a purpose. I believe everybody has a purpose. And every day walk, every day in our daily work, we have the opportunity to walk into our purpose. But many of us may never experience that because we're still questioning ourselves. What does that mean? How do I even step into that? Or maybe I have an urge to do something big, but I may not know how, when, and where. And this is why these podcasts are very important because people like Georgiana, who has heard the call, who has the burning desire, can be vulnerable to talk about her joining, right? Because sometimes when you look at individuals and you see the or you think it's rose, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's rose. It means that uh, you have a lot of sacrifices that you agree to make when you answer the call. Like again, I'm honored to have this powerful woman on this podcast who's going to be sharing with us tonight on the topic, what does it look like to answer the call when the harvest is plentiful? So, Doc, I'll give you a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell the audience what you want them to know about you. Who is Dr. Georgiana?
Well, there's so many, I wear many hats, but I would say the most fulfilling, and I'm really thankful for the hats that I wear, but what has been very consistent and the most fulfilling in my life, knowing that I'm doing the will of God. So, of course, like you introduced me, my name is Dr. Georgiana Remmie. I'm the founder and president of a nonprofit called Ravaging Affects Idolizing Narcotics. We do exactly what the title and the name of the nonprofit is. Our goal is to ravage the effects, idolizing narcotics. Right now, we know that there's a global epidemic when it comes to fentanyl, and there are other opioids that people are using, and it's causing and wreaking havoc in all nations. And when I was called to do this and chose to do it, it wasn't something that I ever thought about. It was an incident that happened that's pretty personal with someone dear to me and close to me. And that is what birthed this nonprofit. And I don't always like to call it a nonprofit, that is a title, but it's actually a ministry. And when I started, I said, well, I'm gonna take the responsibility. I heard the call and I stood firm on my word and said that I'm going to do exactly what I've been told to do, and didn't realize that it was much more deeper than what I could have ever imagined. This has been one of the most fulfilling but challenging opportunities I've ever been blessed to do by God.
Ravaging is a big word. I know I've been trying to practice this word. I don't know why I couldn't just say ravaging so easily.
Yeah.
It's a powerful word. What is the reason behind naming your non-for-profit Ravaging? I mean, what was the driver behind that? Because ravaging is a powerful word.
So I'm smiling a lot, but I often cry because of the nonprofit. So if I break out and start crying, it's because of the mandate and how much it means to me to have this opportunity. But ravaging affects idolizing narcotics. I realize that unfortunately in some communities more than others, we find where people idolize narcotics. They have music videos, they have songs about it. And so therefore there are people that are celebrities or just locals that have a certain stardom level, and they say that they don't do the things that they do to be an influence or a role model to those who watch them. But what people have to realize is that we all are role models to someone. So whatever it is that we do, it has an impact and affects people. And what I've been seeing is a lot of young people are idolizing narcotics. They think that it's more of a recreational thing, they're having fun taken these drugs in and it's one and done. We're finding situations where these young people and also adults, their parents are showing them, unfortunately, that they use these drugs as well. So they're dying. And I don't know any other way to put it but the fact that the drugs are killing our young people more and more each day, and my goal is to ravage the effects idolizing narcotics, destroy it, want it to be no more, like Jesus cursed that bush that did not bear any trees, let it die, cut it at the root, whatever needs to be done. And that's my goal, to ravage it. I want it to be destroyed, and we need to do it as a community, so.
That's a powerful mandate. You
Yeah,
know, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you've been following the situation in Liberia. There
I've
was
heard about it.
a big awareness walk that talked about say no to drugs, right?
Mm.
I believe the entire community came out to really express the disappointment, and it was a rock call where people were really talking about the need to really do something.
Yeah.
And I think that was a major step, first major step, bringing full awareness to the community. But the big question is, it's good to bring awareness, but what's next? Right? I mean, it's not an easy thing to get an individual off drugs. This person is addicted. I mean, this is the way of life. From a mental perspective, the thing this is okay. So coming out and bringing awareness is good. But what are some of the strategies, or what are some of the things you think in Liberia will help for the next step? Because all of this is happening. Everybody is aware of the situation. It is so bad. I have family members that are impacted. And
Mm.
at the NETW Memorial Foundation, we are very intentional about making sure that our students are aware of the negative impact. But when you're living in a community that is infested, I would say infested because when you look at what is happening in Liberia now, it's really mind boggling. So,
Yeah.
what would you say from your perspective? What are some of the things that we could do or recommend, or what you've done in your non for profit space from a next step perspective to help individuals that are struggling with drugs?
Well, there's two things I really like that you said before I answer this. How that with your organization in Liberia, and thank you so much for the work that you and your family do as well with that. You said that you bring the awareness, and that's one of the biggest things. The second thing is coming together as a community. So with Ravaging Affects Idolizing Narcotics, our goal is to go into communities, educate them, and also teach them how to properly use Narcan naloxone. And that is a drug that is administered nasal, and it can help a person reverse the effects of opioid overdose and hopefully save their lives, because it doesn't always work. There's so many things I can explain about that, but just so you know that although we use Narcan naloxone, it doesn't always work. So now I'll answer your question, what we can do. One of the things that I've realized that worked for the younger people is explaining to them the power of love, and
Mm,
that when you really love a person and you find yourself in a place where you can learn to love yourself, you're not going to want to harm yourself, or you're not going to want to see someone that you love be harmed. And I also tell them it's like Russian roulette. You're doing this pill once, or you're taking a edible, or they're ingesting things that are harmful, and you don't know if that person is going to live to tell the story the next day of what happened to them. So I explained to many people that if you really love your brother or your sister, am I my brother's keeper? What would you do if you knew that they're going to do something that's harmful that can really affect them and take their life? You wouldn't want to see them walk out in the street where there's all these cars coming, and they're in a position where you know you can save them, but you don't. And so I give them those type of analogies so that they can put it in place in a different perspective to have an understanding. But there's something I would like to share as well. It is very unfortunate that those who are dealing and distributing these drugs to these young people, or whoever they are, elderly people, young, because we're seeing it of all ages. There was a time where people would purchase illegal substances, and what they're purchasing is exactly what they get. And I'm not saying that dealers then had more integrity than what they have now, but what I'm saying is this. Someone can go make a purchase for one thing and realize after that there's been something else mixed in that. And that's what causes many of the addictions, because they continue chasing something that they don't even realize that they're taking, because they went to purchase one thing, but something else was added to that. It was laced. So it's with all of the deceitfulness that comes with it, they're not knowing what they're ingesting, and that ends up being their last day, unfortunately.
wow.
Yes.
Wow. What was the reason that led you to step into the space? Because sometimes when you have a call, it might be aligned to some personal trauma, or for me, I started an NETO non-for-profit organization in memory of my late mother, because she died when I was 14, almost 15 years old. Um, I saw her dead on the highway when I was going back to Buchanan, but my mom was a big advocate of education, community, and faith. So the 14 years that I had with her, those core values really shaped my life. And I knew that she wanted to see every child have the full opportunity. And she always said that education is the game changer. She was a maid to an educated family who never thought of her as deserving of that opportunity. So when she had her 9 kids, even though she was not formally educated, she did everything she could to make sure that we had a quality education. So her life was really cut so short and abruptly in a car accident. And after God had really blessed my life, and I had the opportunity, my husband and I, to go back to Liberia, going back to the community in Buchanan where I was born and raised, I went back and I saw my friends, 4 or 5 kids running around barefooted. And right there, I got impregnated. Like God just poured into me and said, this is the reason you were born and raised in this community, to be the baker, to give these children opportunity. And this is happening while I'm visiting my mom's grave. So I knew there and then this is what my mother wanted, that to see every child have that opportunity. That's why we started the Antietam Memorial Foundation, providing free education. And then I watched her many days have so much business strategy, but she did not have funding.
Mhm.
So I thought about, how do we empower women? Because when you empower a woman, that woman is empowering over 20, 30 people in Africa. So it
Yeah.
was critically important to also help our mothers. And then when we think about from a health perspective, I know many days we were sick at home. We could not, my mom could not afford to take us to hospital. So we would do like the natural herbs and things like that. So all of those coupled together really give birth to the Annie Tito Memorial Foundation. So I'd love to hear from you. What's your personal story behind why you are so passionate about this work?
I'm going to share as much as I can. I got a call and had to rush to the hospital and watch someone I love dearly. And they had an opioid overdose. And they on the scene, they did a lot of resuscitation. The person is still alive. And they also had to administer Narcan and naloxone. And that's what helped them. When I got to the emergency room, the person was in the middle of the ER, and I'm asking, hey, what's going on? Like, why are they here? And they said there's a 4-hour window. And I'm like, what is a 4-hour window? They said that after it happened, there's like a 4-hour window. If the overdose came back on them, they would have to try to resuscitate again, save their life, but it's possible that they could have transitioned on the spot. Most people in a situation like that would be in tears, screaming, crying, oh God, I cried out to God in a different way. And as I walked around that person in the emergency room and I prayed for them, I heard ravaging effects, idolizing narcotics. And I said, wait a minute, what is this? And I just kept walking and pacing. So I started to walk the entire ER. And I was told that there were several other people that had the same experience. And it's something that's normal, that's happening. And I just kept hearing God on that day. No tears could run from my eyes. All I was thinking was, let me pray for them and everyone else that had this experience. And then I heard again, ravaging effects, idolizing narcotics. When I left the ER that morning, it was about 3 a.m. I got there probably about 9 and left that morning about 3 a.m. When I was walking to my vehicle, I heard God say again, ravaging effects, idolizing narcotics. And then he said, you're going to start a nonprofit. You're going to teach and educate the community. You're also going to show people how to do hands-on CPR, as well as how to properly administer Narcan naloxone to possibly save as many lives as possible. And that was where the birthing of it was. The mandate came. I had many nights of tears and crying. And then almost immediately after I did what he said for me to do, people started coming to me in supernatural ways, asking me more and more questions. And then I dug in, and the Bible speaks about studying to show yourself approved. And so I started doing more research. What can I do to be even better at what I'm doing? Because I wasn't aware of all this stuff. But the moment he gave me the mandate, I answered the call, and it's been a quite heavy experience since.
Wow, what a powerful move, right? So you had no idea about the space. For those of you who are listening in the Facebook land or on under the Zoom thing, who may be asking yourself, I have this idea, or God has called me to do this, but it's difficult, right, to determine where to start from. Here is Dr. Georgina, who had no idea.
No idea at all.
No idea,
Not
right?
at
But
all.
you were
Not
able
at
to
all.
start because you took the next step.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
next step is, first, what I'm hearing is identifying the resources
Yes.
that will help position you, right? So many of us who are Christians, we hear God call us to do something big. The Bible talks about faith without work is dead. So we can have all the faith in the word, but we have to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I know there's been some sleepless nights.
Oh, yes.
And even after you put in the work, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the results, but it's consistency.
Yes.
So has there been situations, or talk to us about your ups and downs,
Oh,
your lows and your highs, and what kept you going?
So I normally would not share my fasting journey, but I would say right now, I like something that you shared about faith without works, is that I'm really loving this because most of and I bless God for all of my interviews, but I like the points that you're making and it's really hitting the nail on the head. So when you spoke about faith without works, When I started, I knew nothing about what Narcan naloxone was. I just knew that I was given a responsibility, and with that responsibility, I've always feel in my heart that everything that we do and that God calls us to do, it should be done with excellence. So my
Mm.
goal was to do the research that's needed, have the proper education personally so that I can educate other people and do it in order so that God could really be glorified in that. So as you said, I put in the work, I did the research, I even researched a doctor that was the key person in putting together Narcan naloxone in a nasal form. I did all of that because I knew that when God calls us to something, He doesn't call us because we're not capable of doing it or we don't have the capacity to get it done. He calls us because He knows that we can do it. We just have to put in our part of the work and He'll bless the rest of it. So, with that also being said, I did my research, as I said, even with the nonprofit. I researched many people, and I'm not saying it's a problem to charge to do a nonprofit, but I knew that where I was with everything that he was saying for me to do, and especially with purchasing the Narcan, I was not in a position where I could pay thousands of dollars for someone to, put in our paperwork for the nonprofit. So I prayed about it. I leaned on God, asked the Holy Spirit to help me. And one night in tears, I was like, God, I don't know what to do. And I'm a big crybaby, so you'll hear a lot of stories about me crying and then the breakthrough coming. So I'm sitting there, I said, God, I don't know what to do. It's so intimidating. He said, get some rest, relax yourself. When you wake up in another night, I will walk you through it. Literally, that's what I heard. I got on that computer, filled out all the paperwork for the nonprofit, and we're now officially approved as a 501c3. So we can sometimes make excuses and say we don't have the means, but you have to put forth the effort so that God could really bless what you're doing. Because just because a prophetic word has been given, it doesn't mean that you just sit on it and okay,
You
God,
better
I'm gonna
preach,
figure it
girl.
out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can.
No, it's okay. I say you better preach.
Yes. So I want to hear what you have to say though. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was saying you were so right because a lot of times we receive the prophetic word that God says he's going to bless you with this big business or this big organization, and we're sitting waiting for the organization to just come alive with
Yeah,
no work. You have to put in the work,
you
and the
do.
Lord is going to bless the works of your hands.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that one of the interesting things you shared was many nights how you research. When we started the non-for-profit organization Annandale Foundation, we did not have idea about how to run a non-for-profit organization, but I think we were in a better space because by profession I am a certified public accountant, and my husband has a, for instance, he has his tax business.
Okay.
So it was easy for us to navigate that water, but regardless of our profession, we still needed that person. It's always important to identify those individuals who've gone ahead of us. So
Mhm.
I'm going to shout out Ben Sanvi, who is my little brother, but a big brother in the sense that he was the first person who had a non-for-profit organization in Liberia at the time. And I remember him visiting our home and talking to me and my husband about some of the processes that we need to actually follow. So it's important when you are called to a mission or a purpose, you have to identify those individuals who've gone ahead of you and leverage some of the expertise. So, most importantly, most times I look at my network internally and externally and ask myself, do I have the right network of people to help me get to where I'm going?
Yes.
So share some of your experience as it relates to those people who help you along the way or some of the disappointments. I mean, you will not always have everything 100%, but again, to the audience that are listening, it's important for you to reevaluate your network. You cannot want to be a doctor and look for a carpenter to train you.
True. I would say that my biggest network will be my mentors, my spiritual mentors. That's number one for me because I can't do it on my own. there's many people that will call me and I will minister to them, pray for them, but I have a circle of people that literally hold my hand, hold my arms up, and I mean hold my whole body up if it's a need, because literally without the spiritual side of things, there's no way that I can do something like this, because I will walk the streets, help people out, do things like that, and I can easily step over someone that's no longer living because of this. So some of the areas that we've been in. But when it comes to mentorship, I have been very bold about that. I look at other nonprofits that are doing the same thing. I will call them, ask questions. I've linked up with other nonprofits just so that they can train me and teach me certain things so that I can have an understanding of why we don't have all of the resources that we would like to have for harm reduction. Uh, and just having a really beautiful, tight-knit circle of people that understands the purpose, and most of all, that understands me. So I like what you said about being mindful of the people that you allow in your circle and who's going to be in your network, because your network truly is going to identify how far you can go in something, because that's where your mentors are coming from. So I also have mentors in every area of my life, spiritual mentors. I even have mentors. I'm big on health and wellness. I love to take care of my body, take care of myself. I have people that mentor me on that as well. As much as I already know, I can never know everything. I'm not an island where I can do it all on my own. I bless God for the strength He gives me. I come in agreement with our Heavenly Father for many things if there's not someone right then and there that I can come in agreement with. But ultimately, He blesses us with one another in order to help. So I have quite a few people that support me. So I do, the job is big, the call is huge, but there's quite a few people that support me, but I would love to have more in all of the communities that we have an impact on.
Amazing, amazing. How do you deal with disappointments? Because I'm sure there's been situations of people that you've trusted who may have disappointed you, or who may not even be interested in the vision, right? Because when God called me into this non-for-profit space, I was burning with passion and felt like everybody, it was supposed to make sense to everybody. And I will share the vision and excited, but there are people who are not interested, people who I thought should have been interested, and God had to check me and says, look, your call is not a conference call. This is a
I love that.
one-on-one. So do not try to make everybody understand the season and purpose that you're walking in. Talk to us a little bit. How have you been able, or have you had the situations, and how have you been able to deal with that, to cope with that?
I've had, so with the type of nonprofit that I have, everyone understands the importance of it, but everyone does not feel like they should be a part of it or support it. And some people just think it's like, it's another hobby. And what I realized is this: if someone not agreeing with what I'm doing for my nonprofit and to help, and this is an assignment that I have, their opinions, that's your opinion. But if for some reason it gets in a way of what I'm doing and it's coming with negative conversations, and it's, it's, if the conversation I'm having with them is not edifying me in any way to go out and do the purpose that God called me to at this point in my life, I'm very okay with letting those relationships go, because it's not going to serve me. Because when I think about this, my purpose is my purpose. I'm not giving up on what God has called me to do. So if you have such a problem that our conversations are not even trying to push me into His will for my life, but yet trying to pull me back, why would you be here? Because that showed me that you should stay back as I go forward. So I no longer, probably in my past, I would have cared about certain things like that. But right now, I kind of expect people to be that way, because we're all on different levels in life. And it's not about me being at a higher level than another person, but it's about me answering the call that God has put upon my life. And everyone's not there. For example, the conversations when we speak, it's always about edifying what God has called us to do. So it's easy to talk to you. it's natural to be able to pour out certain things and share with you as you share with me, because we understand what happens when God has called you. We know the burden, the sleepless nights, the nights that we cry so much, the nights that we wish that we had someone to really help us, and then we turn around and there's no one there, like when Jesus told the disciples, will you pray with me, and he'll always go back and they're sleeping. We know what that feels like. Even when you have a great support system, when God calls you, you're going to have to leave some people and sometimes everyone behind to go and pray and do what he wants you to do. And when you look back, some of the people you left, they're not still going to be standing there, and who cares? Because you're focused on what God has called you to do. And that's where I am. So I actually like when people show me and tell me how they really feel about what God has called me to do, and even if they have dislikes, because that's just them working their way out for the right people to come in.
And you're comfortable with it.
I'm very comfortable with that because I understand the brunt and the pain of what I'm already experiencing and doing. I can't handle other people's emotions. Like this, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to be eating until Saturday. Since yesterday, no water, no food. That's more than a 3-day completely dry fast. So I'm actually operating only on the Holy Spirit, because although I teach people how to properly use Narcan and naloxone, I'm not just relying on medicine, I'm relying on a power that's inside of me. So I don't really have the energy for what other people are doing, because I'm trying to raise people from the dead, literally. So I can't entertain that. And that's one of my most passionate, speaking points when it comes to what God called me to do. I'm not just here pushing medication to save a person's life. What if we do not have the Narcan on us? I need to have a level of power within me and support so that I can speak life into someone that has transitioned and they come back to life. So I'm really in the business of saving lives, not trying to pull people and drag them with me. Too much weight, I can't do it.
I love the point that you're making, right? Preparedness, right? Because you, as the vision bearer, has to be prepared, and not
Yeah.
just physically, but spiritually
Yes.
and mentally. Because you have
Yes.
to be able to get to the point where you understand that you know what you know, that this is God's business.
Yeah.
So even if one person agrees, I'm okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay. And the thing is, and here's another thing. I know that God told me to do this. So if no one else agreed, I'm in agreement with him.
Mm, that's what's that's what matters.
Even if the world was to turn their back on me 100%, it's not going to stop me from being the addict's advocate. It's not going to stop me from being a voice for those who can't speak for themselves, because God called me. So ultimately, it's like, if the world didn't agree, I just agree in my word, the prophecy that was given, and I put in the work. So I don't know if I've just gotten to this level and place in my life, because I could remember times where I did care about how people felt, because I always wanted to pull everyone with me. It doesn't mean that I don't want the best for everyone, but I don't want everyone's best to the point where it's going to hold me back from destiny. This is my calling. I was chosen for this. I was chosen to speak and minister to people. I was chosen to show a level, a big level of love to people in the world. I can't do that. And I know it might sound cliche, but with haters on my back. So if you have this hateful spirit and you're hating on what God called me to do, I can't help you but to love you. And if I can't love you enough and God couldn't help you, I can't do nothing for you but keep going forward. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just love your confidence, because that's what is needed to move the work forward. Because a lot of times people think you are brag colossus, or you brag too much, or you don't care, you show off. You were just confident in
Of
what.
course I'm gonna brag. So let's talk about bragging. Can you
Yeah.
explain what you mean? Because I brag. I brag on God. Like everything about me, He made me this way to be in ministry. I used to go to strip clubs. He will send me to strip clubs dressed up beautifully. They will let me in the back with the young ladies. I will minister and love on them and build beautiful relationships with them. They will call me, we'll talk to one another. If I didn't look the way I did, they're not going to let me back there. So, of course, I'm going to
Mm.
brag on God. He built me the way that He built me for ministry. I look the way I look for ministry. Why not brag? He bragged about it. He said He made us fearfully and scarefully. That's serious. Like He bragged about it, so why can't we? We're made in His image. Let's do it. Like, why not?
I love your confidence. I love your confidence because sometimes people think when you come to God, you should look certain way or act certain way. But God, God uses the foolishness of His word, as you know, to conform the wise.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the little things that you do, it's how you appear, how you speak, how you look good. You don't want to make God look so much so that people can even want to serve the God that you love so much, that loves you so much, because your God looks so different from my everyday life. God should not look different from my everyday life. How I show up,
Yeah.
how I interact with people. That's what the power of possibility is how I show up every day. Ministry is every day. And
Yes.
you never know whose life is going to be transformed. So
Yeah.
the fact that you could dress like those girls in the club, knowing that you're on a mission, right? Because you first
Yes.
want to look like them so
Mhm.
that they can be able to listen to you. Other ministers might say, no, 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 you're going above and beyond. But according to you, if that's how God has called you, who am I to question how you execute on what God has called you to do?
I didn't. And so here's the thing as well. What I love about the Lord, the way that He will use us, it's not going to compromise our integrity.
Yeah.
I wear a pair of fitted jeans, a nice fitted top. I don't have to have all of my skin out. He gave me the body already that's going to allow me in a place like that. I'm just being very transparent. If one of my spiritual mothers, God knows I love her so much, Mom Connor, ooh, I love her. If she was to go with one of her little long skirts, they'd be like, oh, hey, mother. They might hide, they may not say much because there's a different type of feel when someone looks a certain way. But when you see someone that's vibrant, young like you are, got the body that you have, and they're telling you, hey, we got the same look, but you really don't have to do this. You could do something else. You've been called for something else. They receive that better because they're not thinking like, oh, she's just saying that because she looks this way and, she can't do what I'm doing. No, really, I could do and probably make even more money. Let's be honest. But the point is that I'm here to let you know that you don't have to live like this. And the confidence, we have to have a certain level of confidence as Christians. It doesn't matter what title you want to put on yourself as a believer, but we're not supposed to want to be like the world. They should want to be like us.
Mm.
We're the one that's walking in the anointing and the power of God and the love of God. It covers a multitude of sins. So even sometimes when we're a little hard on ourselves for looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, or someone else is hard on us, please let that love cover the multitude of sins that you think I'm in. I mean, it works for all of us.
Wow, this is so powerful. Oh my God, this conversation is so powerful. But I'd like to bring us back a little bit again to the actual topic that says, what does it look like to answer the call when the harvest is plentiful? Sometimes when God calls us from a distance, it seems easy. But when you step into it, and then you realize a lot of sacrifices that you have to make, a lot of dying to self that you have to make to get to the place of plentiful. You just cannot get to the place of plentiful without walking sometimes through the dry ground, through the
Yes.
drought to understand. I remember many nights, even with the Antidote Foundation, after 14 years, there's been some areas that have been so dry. And then I asked God, it's 14 years, God, why I'm still not having abundance in every area.
Mm.
And he says, I'm still preparing you, right? Are you ready for the overflow? And sometimes we have to depend on people that we can trust. I have those individuals in our circle where when things are really hard, I can pick up a call and say, hey, we need $2,000-3,000 right now.
Yes.
Can we count on you?
Mm.
Tell us about your journey. Do you have those experiences? Have you been in those dry areas where you feel like, God, this is not working? I'm going to turn around and just let this thing go.
I've had many areas like that because we just became officially a nonprofit. They send our information